Okay, really quickly guys, before we get this video started, I want you guys to take note that this video is actually a lot shorter than other deck profiles you see on the channel, and that's because it is just a deck profile. Really recently on my channel, I posted a video called the Great Nature Masterclass, where I go super in-depth into everything that I can talk about in terms of set 5 Great Nature, so that way I can help you guys better understand the deck, better understand its combos, and better understand how to play with it. And while I was making that video, I tried to cram as much information as possible, and I feel like trying to cram that much information, as well as gameplay, as well as an intro, as well as just trying to make the video generally entertaining, is kind of impossible. So I want to keep doing that level of information for you guys, but I don't think I can do it if I combine the videos with also ranked gameplay matches. So I decided that for today's Angel Feather deck profile, I was going to do things a little bit differently. In today's video, I'll be going through pretty much every single option that you guys could have in terms of building an Angel Feather deck, as well as how to use the deck in a general sense. And then, if this video reaches 100 likes within 24 hours of being posted, right now it's 7 a.m. Wednesday, July 8th, if by July 9th at 7 a.m. we reach 100 likes, that day I will post a gameplay demonstration video where I do a very similar thing, but instead of going in depth on how the deck actually works, I'll go very in depth into the combos as well as my gameplay and my thought process when playing the deck. I figured separating these two videos accomplishes two things. Number one, it allows me to maximize the amount of information whilst minimalizing the time that it takes for me to kind of cover everything, so that way you guys can digest this content a lot easier. And two, it kind of allows me to kind of service you guys, because if you would rather see deck profiles and you don't really care about seeing ranked gameplay, I don't need to make a ranked gameplay video unless you guys want it. My reasoning for this, by the way, guys, is I really want to make sure that I give you guys the kind of content you want, but also the kind of content that you like. And I don't think it's fun to watch someone blab on for 45 minutes about all kinds of things about a deck. I think it's way more enjoyable for you guys to get a nice little short 15-minute video, and then if you want like a nice 30 minutes of gameplay, I can give it to you if you want it. If this does really well, and this is the way you guys want to do it, this is how we'll do deck profiles for Vanguard 0 and other games from here on out. If you guys don't like it, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and I'll go back to the old system, but I'm going to have to kind of give less information deck by deck, because it just won't be an enjoyable video to watch if I just keep blabbering on and blabbering on. Hopefully you guys understand. I want to try my best to make the best content possible for you guys, and I think that means trying to change the way I've been doing it, because I think the way I've been doing it isn't optimal for trying to give you guys the best and the most information that I can. Make sense? Okay, with all that being said, you guys, let's go ahead and roll the intro and get this video started. Ooh, scary. That sounds fun, but for the time being, I'm gonna treat you to a symphony of pain. Now! I break ride! Chief Nurse Shamsiel! Welcome back, everyone. My name is Steven Rodriguez. I'm your true champion, and today, like I said earlier during my announcement, we are doing just an Angel Feather deck profile, but it'll kind of be like a little mini masterclass. I'll go through every single card option, why it's there, sort of other things you can try and play, other versions of the deck that I'm not currently playing but you guys could play, and all fun stuff like that. So if you guys are excited, please be sure to let me know that by leaving a like on this video, subscribing to the channel, and clicking that bell for notifications. If this video hits 100 likes, then I will be doing a gameplay demonstration video for the very deck that I'm profiling here, so that way you guys can actually see me use the deck and see the combos in action, if maybe just my voice isn't enough to kind of help you imagine what the deck should be doing. As stated before, the reason why I'm doing this kind of new style of video is because I want to maximize the ability to give you guys information, but also maximize your ability to digest that information. If I keep putting out 45-minute long videos talking about decks, not all you guys are going to watch them all the way through and get every bit of information that you guys can. So I want to make sure that you guys maximize what you're getting, but I also want to make sure that I maximize what I'm able to give you, and splitting these two things up allows me to do that. So hopefully you guys understand. If you guys enjoyed this new style or are excited to see kind of how it plays out, let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. But if you guys are really itching to see some gameplay demonstrations of any decks that I play, I do go live every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday over on Twitch. Go follow me there. I do all kinds of things in just chatting as well. So if you have any questions specifically regarding sort of certain things with your experience, or any TCG related stuff, or really anything, we talk about all kinds of stuff over there. Feel free to come and maybe I can give you guys some answers. But anyways, I think I've distracted distracted you guys long enough, let's go ahead and take a look at some Angel Bays. Alright guys, here we are in my deck builder. Now, a quick little backstory here, actually. Much like a lot of people in the Vanguard community, I actually never played Angel Feather when it first came out because I was A, building NARUKAMI at the time, or B, not really a serious competitive player when it first got introduced. And then by the time Break Ride came out, I was busy playing other decks like NARUKAMI, Raging Form Dragon, Pale Moon, other things. And it wasn't really until G era when Gavrail came out that I was like, okay, maybe I should give Angel Feather a try. And then they came out with the rescue mechanic, and I was like, okay, here we go. And then we had the no seal deck, and then the deck came out in standard, and then like ever since Gavrail, basically, I've been an Angel Feather stan, and it's been like my main like United Sanctuary clan besides Shadow Paladin. So I'm really looking forward to doing this profile for you guys. I think I have a lot of experience using Angel Feather. I know its strengths, I know its weaknesses, and hopefully I can paint a good picture for you guys given the experience that I have. Now, right off the bat, before I show you guys the actual deck list, the deck list I'll be showing you is sort of like a Shamsiel or Angel Feather good stuff list. Like, it's like there's no real archetype within it. It's just like the best cards you can play in Angel Feather right now. There is an archetype specific Angel Feather deck that does exist called Ergodial, and it tries to outlast your opponent in order to try and achieve a victory, and it does that really well by using automatic heals and persona blasts, which is super cool. The reason why I will not be showing you that one today is I find it very one note. I don't think it has anything besides defense, and as I've stated before in this game, especially in this format right now, the key to being a good deck is to be aggressive, but also to be consistently aggressive. And while Ergodial has the ability to be consistent and continually aggress the opponent gradually, it doesn't really have any aggression mechanics inside of it besides the occasional like 4k given to a column because of a no seal you drop that turn, which isn't really enough to kind of push for damage. And it's not the kind of deck that can kind of afford to play stands or crits. I guess you could, but then that risks you not being able to hit with your Vanguard, or just is awkward for you to draw your pieces if you're not running 9 draw triggers. So I'm not a big fan of Ergodial. However, it is a strong deck and it does everything it wants to do really well. It just isn't really in a place or in a meta right now where I feel like it can thrive. That brings me to this deck, the Shamsiel Kyriel deck, and I don't know what's been going on with these deck profiles recently, but for some reason there's just a trend that I have literally every card I need except for my last boss unit. Like, I've literally had 3 of all my boss units for all these decks, and I just now realized this today. I had one, I was missing 1 Leopold, I was missing 1 Vermillion, I'm missing 2 Ezels, but really I'm missing only 1 because I'm like 1 rank away from getting Legend 20, so it's kind of crazy. How I'm literally missing 1 of all my boss units. So I only own 3 Shamsiel, but luckily we still have the rental system in Cardfight Vanguard Global, so I'm chilling. Let's talk a little bit about this deck, starting with its general playstyle. So if you guys don't know what Angel Feather does, Angel Feather is the damage zone clan. They have basically, in this iteration of Angel Feather anyway, they use their damage zone as sort of like an extension of their hand. So while your hand may be only maximum of 9 cards, that plus your damage zone essentially makes the maximum of 14 cards. There are cards in your damage zone that might not be in your hand that you still have access to thanks to cards like Shamsiel, No Seal, and No Seal again. Another thing it has going for it is effects like Shamsiel, Million Ray, and Thousand Ray, who each gain power every time a card is put into your damage zone, and this does happen during both yours and your opponent's turn, so you're essentially a 12k base every single time you take a damage. So you kind of become like a makeshift MLB, a makeshift cross ride, which inherently is very defensive. So while you may not be as turtly as Ergodial is, just by being able to heal and not die, you do have a natural built-in defense mechanism that if your opponent can't play around, they're not going to deal damage to you. So it kind of like forces your opponent to commit more sometimes, which is super nice. And of course, that ability to gain power also enables you to have much more consistent rearguard columns during your turns, so that way you can push for damage if you need to against your opponent, which is again a problem that Ergodial had, but Shamsiel and Kyriel can kind of fix for you. Alright, that's enough generalities. Let's go ahead and get into what the cards actually do. We have our main boss unit, Chief Nurse Shamsiel. She has 2 Vanguard skills. I already mentioned one, the gaining 2k power whenever a card is put into the damage zone. That's non-limit break. Her limit break skill, limit break 4, is when this unit attacks, you may put a card from your hand into your damage zone and then add a card from your damage zone to your hand. This allows you to sort of abuse that extended hand that I was talking about to add to your consistency, as well as proc your plus 2000 power during your turns. That way you can increase your rearguard columns and try and push for more damage that turn. Our second boss grade 3 is probably going to be like our first early ride target slash our late game ride target, because Curiel is the best card to push for pressure against your opponent, that Angel Feather tends to have a problem with sometimes. Her 2 skills are when placed, Counterblast 2 to call a card from your damage zone, and then put the top card of your deck into your damage zone face down. So rather than damage swapping from your damage zone to hand, you damage swap from your deck to your board. So that's pretty cool. A card from your damage zone goes to the board, and then a card from your deck goes in the damage zone face down. This also procs the adding cards damage zone effect, so you do also gain power if you already have units in play, which is super nice. And then her limit break skill is when this unit attacks a Vanguard, gain 5,000 power, so she doesn't need a boost to hit a lot of Vanguards, or if she's boosted by like 1,000 Ray that turn, the turn she's ridden, she actually becomes a 24k column, which hits everything including cross-ride deck, so you can actually push for damage at that 4 or 5, regardless of them hitting damage triggers, which is super nice. And then finally, we have 6 really good rear guards in this deck. We have Calamity Flame, who is basically just a Pegasus clone. On Vanguard, rearguard gain 2k whenever cards put in the damage zone. This is a really nice rearguard to have. It's actually sometimes like if you don't have any Shamsiels, running more copies of Calamity Flame is actually really nice, because in the early game, it's essentially the same thing as Shamsiel is, because Shamsiel's limit break is the only thing different between these 2 cards. So if you ride this, like when you're at 2 damage, it's kind of like no big deal. So you don't really need to see as many Shamsiels or even play that many if you have enough Calamity Flames to kind of make up for that. And then finally, we have Medical Gunner, I'm gonna butcher it. Hermiris. I can't say her name. I'm so sorry. Leave it down in the comments how to actually say it. But she has a rearguard skill, really good one. When its attack hits a Vanguard, counterblast 1 and put this unit into your damage zone to call a card other than her from your damage zone. If you call the face down card, this card turns face down. This allows you to push for damage against your opponent, even if they have 2 intercepts, because you just swing rearguard, intercept, Vanguard, intercept, get a trigger, give it to Hermiris, swing, use your effect, put her in there, call a card in front of a Pegasus, and then swing again with the Pegasus proc. It's actually super cool, and it's a neat little play that not a lot of people expect, and it's a way for us to kind of get past the 2 intercepts. Which this deck's biggest problem right now is just dealing damage when your opponent just calls 2 intercepts, because like I said, it's not the most aggressive deck. There's no like inherent way to restand besides Hermiris, and she needs to hit, and if you have to boost her to hit, then her second attack is a lot weaker if you don't have a booster somewhere else that you can, you know, save. So like it can get awkward sometimes to have a board and then still deal damage to your opponent, and you have to make some sacrifices sometimes. So having cards like stand triggers, which we are playing by the way, kind of fixes that problem inherently, and then having cards like Hermiris makes it even easier in a more guaranteed or generic sense. So that's pretty much it for the grade 3s. Other cards you can play is, I wouldn't be surprised, I think I've seen people like running a 4 of Ergodial, just Ergodial, and like making her the heal trigger, so that way she like acts as like a backup ride that you can use, sort of like drag out the game if you feel like you're falling behind, because there is no 11k Vanguards. Like they're all 10k, so like it doesn't matter if like your Ergodial has the right chain or not, it just doesn't matter. So just having it as an option to Persona Blast and heal yourself is kind of nice, because there are guaranteed hits in Vanguard 0. You can kind of get away with stuff like that. I find it a little cheeky. I don't think it's like the most consistent way to play with the deck, and frankly I think the deck's longevity isn't the problem. The problem is its ability to deal damage, which I try and fix through stand triggers, and as you'll see, sort of like a generic way to kind of gain power with our rear guards. So moving on to grade 2s, we have sort of like the, you know, the guaranteed like 4 ofs here. We have the 4 grade 2 no seal and the 4 Pegasus. Pegasus is our main ride target turn 2 most of the time, and he's like the main call target that we have with like Curiel or cards like Hermiris, because he gives us a lot of value going into our opponent's turn, plus it enables us to kind of just like be able to boost our rearguard columns. If we have like a Pegasus column, like it's going to be pretty big, like the more you just cycle cards with no seals and stuff like that, which is really nice. A common thing that I have with this deck is really weak rearguard column, medium Vanguard column, and then super big rearguard column. That's like my favorite way to kind of do this with this deck, because it allows us to swing at rearguards while also making sure that we can have a guaranteed hit or even 2 hits against our opponent's Vanguard, which is super nice. And then the 4 no seals is like a generic damage swap. When placed, swap a card from your hand, damage zone, put a card back from your damage zone into your hand. Really nice. It's actually a counter charge too most of the time. So like if you go Curiel, Counterblast 2, call a card, and then you call one of the face down cards, you counterblast, and then you call a no seal to get the other face down card, put it in your hand to put a card face up in your damage zone. Boom. You instantly just call the card for free and then swap damage. If you have a Pegasus in play, you gain power. Like, there are some neat little just like interactions that happen, and through that like countercharging, it allows us to kind of abuse cards like Armoros a lot more, which is our Counterblast 2 draw a card. Super useful, especially with Shamsiel, because there are moments where like you have no cards in hand, but so you can't actually do a damage swap without first placing a card from your hand in your damage zone and then getting a card out. But luckily, with Armoros, we can always just swing at a rear guard, poke it, Counterblast 2, draw a card, and then swing with Shamsiel, put a card back in, put a card out, and we can like dig for PGs that way, which is kind of crazy cool sometimes. So just having a neat way to kind of always have a card in your hand is really nice, plus a generic +1 is never a bad thing. And finally, I'm running 2 of the damage adders for Angel Feather. While the limit break for Angel Feather isn't a necessary thing, this card actually serves a pretty unique purpose because it adds a card to our damage zone, which in Angel Feather can actually be a really cool, useful tool, because there are so many things you can do with this deck that sort of mess with the way these work. So if you guys don't know how these things work, they always will prioritize face down damage as cards that you put back. But if all the cards are face up, from what I've noticed, they tend to do whatever the first card is, or the first trigger that the computer recognizes. Like, I don't know, I can't prove that this is true, and I'm pretty sure this is wrong, but I always see if there are like 2 cards in my damage zone, one of which is a trigger and one of which isn't, it always seems to favor the trigger. So a cool thing that you can do with this card, among just being able to proc your adding damage zone effects, also being able to enable limit break, it also sort of allows you to manipulate what you can put back. So if you draw a bunch of heal triggers, which this deck can do, being that it plays 5 thanks to Sunny Smile Angel, you can actually put a Hermiris into your damage zone, take the face down card that this card gave you, put it in your hand, doesn't matter what it is, and then at the end of the turn, if there's like only 1 or 2 cards in your damage zone, let's say one of them's a trigger, one of them's not, there's like a non 50-50 chance that this heal trigger is going back in your deck. So it's like a neat little just like techie thing that I've been enjoying messing around with. This, coupled with like the generic utility of adding limit break and the generic utility of adding damage in general to kind of boost your Pegasus and proc your other skills, is honestly super nice, and I like playing it. A good other thing that you can play besides this is just the 10k beat stick. I think his name is Bethnail. Really good card. No reason not to run it. I for one think the 8k actually gives you more utility, but if you don't want to be like risky like me and sort of play the odds, and you don't think your limit break is as important as other ones, because it's really not, then there's really no reason to play this card. But I'm enjoying playing it, and I think it does add a lot of neat utility to the deck that maybe you wouldn't think of right off the bat. And finally, we have the grade 1s. Now, this is pretty much like standard, I think. I don't think there's anything else you can play in here besides maybe the damage adders, or I've seen people playing that 6k dog card that like bounces back to your hand. Honestly, I have no idea why. I think it's for like the same reason that I play Armoros. It's so you can have like, it's so like you can always have a card in your hand to proc Shamsiel, I guess. But like, I'd rather just have an 8k booster, if I'm being honest. We have our 4 PGs, generic defense, you need them. Being able to fish these out of the damage zone is so clutch. It's not even funny. We need our 4 Pegasus, best booster in the deck, creates amazing rearguard columns, and honestly, sometimes can be a pretty good attacker because he becomes 9k after just adding 1 card to damage zone, so you can swing by himself, get a stand trigger, make him 14, boost with another 7k, or another 6k, boom, make him 20, and you got a really good column on your hands. Then we have our 3 grade 1 no steal. Some of you Vanguard OGs out there will know that this effect actually is a Guardian Circle effect and not a rearguard circle effect, but there is no Guardian Circle in Vanguard 0, so it has to be a rearguard circle effect. Same exact effect as the grade 2 no seal. When placed, perform a damage swap. And some people saw this as a nerf. Personally, I kind of see this as a buff. Sure, it's a big subtraction to the inherent defense that Angel Feather could have, because what you used to be able to do was guard with this card, do a damage swap, and then using Shamsiel's effect, increase your Vanguard's power during your opponent's turn before they even hit you, so you can become a 12k out of nowhere. With cards like Gavrail and Broken Heart, this became crazy during the G era, and you could really manipulate this, but you can't do that in this game. Instead, what you get is sort of an extra proc of these cards during your turn, which I would argue is more needed, because the defense of this deck isn't really the problem. You already get an automatic 5k every time you take a damage. That plus your automatic 2k means an automatic 7k every single time you take damage. That's already a buff in and of itself defensively. What you really need is more offensive presence, and this allows you to have another way just to give like a whole column plus 4k, or 3 columns plus 2k, or in like some craziness, 2 columns plus 4k and 1 column plus 2k. So really, it does the job you really need it to do, and then some. So I'm actually a big fan of this no seal change, and so far I haven't been disappointed every single time I use it. And then finally, like I said, we are playing 2 8Ks. If you want to, you can play 2 of the 6k damage adders for the same reason that I'm playing 2 of the 8k damage adders. Frankly, I feel like running 2 is more than enough to kind of test my theory and have like some fun utility action with this deck, because it's just so consistent that you can get away with playing cards at like 2 of, they're just like negligible and don't really do anything for you, but sometimes they do, and that's why I'm playing these cards, because it just is like a super consistent deck, and I really like consistency, especially when it comes to kind of messing around and seeing what more you can do. That being said, I think this deck comes in at a super high tier 2, reaching on tier 1.5. I need to play with it some more and really kind of get its matchup spread before I make that final judgment during the tier list video coming out in a few days. But I do think this deck has promise, especially once we get Metatron, because Metatron will make this deck aggressively more consistent, which will be super nice for it in the future. But yeah, guys, that'll go ahead and do it for my Angel Feather deck profile. Hope you guys did enjoy. I have high hopes for this new format of doing deck profile videos, where I do deck profiles and then I do gameplay videos separately. I mean, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you guys have any questions for me about this deck or about playing with it, come into my Twitch channel. I go live every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time in the mornings, and I do all kinds of Vanguard Zero content over there, as well as I spend a lot of time in just chatting, so that way you guys can ask me your questions there, and I can definitely give you guys some answers. But with all that being said, don't forget to leave a like. Let's be sure to smash that like goal before the 24 hours are up, and get this gameplay demonstration video out for you guys. As always, I've been your true champion, Steven. Please be sure to work hard, rest easy, and live well, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.